Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this Innovation Forum webinar held in partnership with Everland. I'm Ian Welsh and I will be your host for the next hour or so. Today, in the latest in our From the Forest Frontline series, we'll be talking with some community representatives from around the world who live and work in protected forests benefiting from REDD+ projects. In particular, we will be discussing how the projects work to strengthen human rights in partnership with Indigenous peoples and local communities. REDD+ projects are, of course, funded by the sale of verified emissions reductions credits, certainly an ongoing hot topic and one that we have been covering for some time. Carbon credits have their critics, of course. However, they are an effective market-based solution that gets funding to forest preservation projects on the ground. Moreover, a recent piece of research from Ecosystem Marketplace shows how corporate buyers of carbon credits are typically the companies doing the most to decarbonize their operations and supply chains. To give some on-the-ground insights, I'll be joined shortly by representatives live from projects in Cambodia, Peru, Kenya, and Colombia. And thanks also to Innovation Forum's B. Stevenson and Savannah Razak for all their work in the run-up to today and their work behind the scenes during the webinar. All right, let's get cracking. To get some background to REDD+, I'm delighted to introduce Josh Tosteson, who's president of Everland. Josh, Everland works with REDD+ projects around the world to channel corporate finance into projects and the communities they work with. So, Josh, what are REDD+ projects and how exactly are they funded?
REDD projects, very simply, are conservation partnerships that bring together all the stakeholders in a threatened forest, communities, governments, and others, including technical service providers that support communities and governments to reduce deforestation in threatened forest landscapes. How are REDD projects financed? On a purely voluntary basis. This is entirely voluntary, and they're funded on the basis of performance by selling verified emissions reductions that result from successful efforts that the projects undertake to reduce their deforestation and emissions against a baseline performance benchmark. That's how it works.
Why should a company invest in REDD projects, ahead of other carbon projects, other carbon credit schemes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll begin by saying I don't want to frame my answer as a this versus that. And I don't think it was the spirit that was asked in, but some people take it that way. What I would say is first that ending forest loss is the most urgent, highest impact action that a company can take beyond the work to reduce emissions in their own internal value chain. Forest loss generates 2 to 3 times the emissions on an annual basis as all of the aviation sector globally. There's no way we're going to stabilize the climate without eliminating deforestation completely by 2030, as many of the governments and all of the important forest governments of the world have pledged to do. REDD is the only mechanism that we have in place that can provide real financial value to communities and to governments for their choice to take conservation as a development path in lieu of all the other alternatives that are available, and which has shown the ability to scale at the pace and with the effectiveness that's really needed to handle the magnitude of this problem.
Josh, thank you. What are the characteristics then of a REDD+ project done well? And as we go through our various case studies this afternoon, what should we be looking out for as we work through them?
What is a high quality REDD project? It's one that works to transform the situation on the ground. What is that situation on the ground? It's one where there are all these drivers of forest loss taking place. So what a REDD project really tries to do over a multi-decadal time frame is transform those drivers into durable social and economic structures that enable people to prosper, enable their communities to prosper alongside the forest. Because forest loss is driven by economics and by development needs, and because basic human rights to land, to social services, to natural resources, these are the foundations for development and for prosperity. So effective REDD projects, really good REDD projects, must and do address these needs for basic human rights as they work over that multi-decadal time frame to create the social and economic foundations for long-term conservation.
Okay, let me turn first then to Kimheak Chhay, who's in the Seima Wildlife Sanctuary REDD+ project in Cambodia. Welcome to you. Your project in Cambodia is based in forests inhabited by the indigenous Bunong people who have lived there for generations. So how does the project work in partnership with the community to enhance their rights?
The indigenous Bunong people have long inhabited and protected this forest, maintaining the rich biodiversity through their traditional practice and animistic belief. They have a very deep connection to spirit and burial forests. Over a decade of engagement has deepened our partnership, leading to the securing of 7 indigenous communal land title, or short ICT, the first of their kind in Cambodia. Several more are underway. This ICT provides the Bunong with formal legal rights to their communally held land for the first time. This is not just a legal formality, it's a recognition and affirmation of their stewardship. With this title, the community can exercise legal authority over their ancestral land, enabling them to enforce conservation practice and engage in sustainable livelihood projects that create jobs and share income, like communally led ecotourism venture. They now have ensured access to essential forest resources, vital for their way of life, while continuing to conserve biodiversity within their territory. The ICT provides the mechanisms that recognize and support the Bunong sustainable practice and deep connection to the land, effectively support conservation while enhance their livelihood and reinforce their cultural heritage.
For REDD+ projects, there's a significant importance to additionality and to baselines. Can you tell me, please, what has happened to the forests outside of the project boundary?
The forests outside the Seima Wildlife Sanctuary boundary are under immense threat, facing accelerated deforestation and degradation due to various factors, including illegal logging, agricultural expansions, and other unsustainable practice. A clear contrast is visible when comparing area within the outside our project boundary. The animations we are presenting visually capture this stark difference over time, revealing the protective impact of the project in collaboration with the indigenous Bunong community. Snow Wildlife Sanctuary, for instance, has experienced significant loss of its forest cover. The absence of a robust community-centered conservation strategy like ours result in forest depletions, endangering biodiversity and the livelihood of those depend on the forest. Our community-centric approach has prevented the forest. It empowers the local community to actively practice and benefit from the conservation activity, creating a sustainable models for forest and community well-being. It's evident that without active interventions and cooperative efforts with indigenous community, the valuable forests in the region risk being lost, taking with them the irreplaceable biodiversity and the crucial resource upon which local population depend. The deforestation pattern witnessed outside the project area underscore the urgent need for expansions of similar conservation initiative and imperative to secure more land title, safeguarding both the forest and the rights and livelihood of the indigenous people.
Thank you very much. I was lucky enough to visit the Seima project in May this year, and it was just very clear on the ground the differences within and without the project area. So thank you for sharing. Just final question then. So thinking in terms of land title, why is securing then the land title so important for the Bunong people?
Securing a land title for Bunong people is a fundamental act of recognition and respect. It provides them with legal rights and recourse, essentially telling them and the world that their cultural heritage is valuable and worth safeguarding. The legal empowerment through land title allows Bunong people to have foremost say in what happened to their ancestral land. This is not just about ownership. It's about ensuring their ability to continue being stewards of this land, living in harmony with the forest as they have for centuries. Legal land title offer a protective barrier, allow indigenous people to push back against type of the development that are odd with their traditional way of life and deep spiritual connections to the forest. With a land title, Bunong have a solid legal standing to protect their interests and preserve their way of life. Having this land legally recognized and titled affirm it is there indefinitely. This security is a powerful enabler to them to continue valuing what the forest offers while safeguarding it for future generations. This approach, we believe, should be replicated and serve as a powerful model for all communities living in and around protected area worldwide. It's a tangible step towards a more inclusive and respectful form of conservation that benefit nature and the people.
Okay, let us move to the Altamirano project in Peru, and I'm joined by José. Welcome. So the key thing in the project, your project, is the conservation agreements that are entered into. So perhaps you can start by telling us what a conservation agreement is, please.
Gracias.
Thank you very much for inviting me. We have the conservation agreement as a tool, and this is a voluntary mechanism that is oriented to strengthen the effective management of protected wildlife areas in Peru. Through this agreement, we want to generate alliances between the National Service for Protected Area with local stakeholders, who may be families, organizations, associations, cooperatives, also indigenous or rural communities who share commitment for a period of time in a defined area of land. From the agreements, we get mutual benefits for both parts in order to generate welfare for people and ensuring the maintenance of the conservation of biodiversity and that on ecosystems that these protected areas have, and also buffering areas and the landscapes that are nearby.
Perhaps you could explain, please, how the link between a conservation agreement, halting deforestation, with the development of economic opportunities for the local people.
La firma de acuerdos de
The
conservación
signature of these conservation agreements with families that live there has allowed them to have the chance to have technical agreements to improve conditions in the occupied, for example, Alto Mayo, which is an area that is famous for its coffee plantations, so improving the coffee plantations and crops. And it has also allowed them to diversify productive activities that are sustainable with other crops, such as, for example, pitahaya, vanilla as well, and also native bees to produce honey, orchid cultivation, and it has also allowed them to have small tourism, specialized tourism activities collectively and as families oriented to bird watching due to the high biodiversity in the area, and also the families have received incentives to improve sanitation in the homes with better kitchens, with ecological dry bathrooms, bio orchards, and that also improves their diet. It has also allowed the strengthening of women who were the first who became involved in signing this agreement. They now have an organization and they are working on handicrafts with mentions of the flora and fauna of the natural protected area. The technical help and the sustainable economic activities that I have mentioned has allowed them to have better income in these families, and the deforestation has gone down in these protected areas. We had 478 acres a year that were lost to deforestation, and we have managed to get down to 195 hectares, and this is still going down. And we have been able to stop the illegal extraction of wood.
Final question at this stage: how have the human rights of the communities involved been enhanced and protected by the project, or in collaboration with the project?
Bueno, primero el acuerdo de
First
conservación.
of all, the conservation agreement has allowed families to keep occupying the territory within the natural protected area and its buffering zone. This is a population that was illegally there, but the conservation agreement has given them a certain amount of legality, so to speak, and to have the opportunity to organize themselves in associations, cooperatives, with the recognition of the National Service for Protected Areas, which has allowed them to have certifications such as the Certification Alliance, Allied for Conservation, the Organic and Fair Trade certifications, which have allowed them to certify their products such as coffee, and has allowed them to export to special markets with differential prices. And also the dialogue that they've had with these families has allowed for the improvement of basic services in the access to education, such as the creation of educational institutions, high schools especially, and articulate to public projects to improve the productive chain of some products such as coffee by building warehouses, and also the improvement of roads towards the communities that are within this territory. And also it has allowed for families to become involved as voluntary rangers through surveillance committees to help in controlling against environmental crimes within the territory. And these are now part of the family of rangers. For the signature of this agreement of conservation, there was no distinction made. Everybody had the chance to sign. There was no age distinction, for example. Many elderly people have become involved, men and women both.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Jose. Let's turn now to the Kasigau Corridor project in Kenya. I'm delighted to be joined by Seraphine from the Kasigau Corridor REDD+ project. Welcome, Seraphine. Nice to be working with you once again. So in Kasigau, one of the key community governance structures of your project are the locational carbon committees. Please, Seraphine, can you explain what the locational carbon committees are? Thank you.
I'm Seraphine. I'm a member of the community from which the Kasigau Red Cross project operates, and I'm a former member of the Locational Carbon Committee. Now, the Locational Carbon Committee is a governance structure for the partnership between the community and the project operations. It is democratically elected and very well inclusive. The members of this committee represent the communities from which and within which they come from. And the election is done through big public meetings called barazas, and the person must come from that area. Now, this committee, therefore, is made of people who live and work in the localities of the project. Their main function is actually representation. They represent their community's interests in the project and in partnership with the project. One of the things that is ensured by these committees is that, first of all, there is fairness in terms of distribution of revenue allocated to the projects in the communities. They also make sure that there is fairness and inclusivity, that no community is left behind when this process of revenue sharing and projects implementation is done. The other thing is that they also ensure accountability, because then they become an open forum, a structure whereby all the issues regarding to the partnership between the community and the project are discussed, including finances, how much has to be given to the community, what are the thematic areas that are going to be funded at one particular point, and even include themselves in the procurement process for the project.
What are the main community impacts of these carbon committees?
The main impact of these committees, therefore, is in their decision-making process and their linkage between the project and the community. In terms of decision-making, being people who actually live in the communities, they are aware of their needs, they are aware of the circumstances in which they live, they are able to prioritize or decide which are the thematic areas that are going to be covered by the revenue from the project within a certain period of time. For example, there may be this time there may be need for them to look further into agriculture, and through that decision, then they take the information. The other function and the other impact is now the sharing of information and linkage between the project and the community. So they take the information regarding the thematic areas that are going to be funded by the revenue collected from the project, and the community is therefore able to decide at this time we need to prioritize on this particular project or the other one, and therefore they are able to put according to their felt needs forward to their to the project then, and as they partner, then the projects are implemented according to the information.
Are there any examples then of how the community's rights have been strengthened that you can share?
Yes, there are very many examples that we can share about this. One of the important things is that those thematic areas that are covered, community impact projects, for example, we talk about education. There are projects that are implemented in education. One, to maybe improve the infrastructure of the education system, or maybe to give scholarships to needy students who require that. There are projects in water, improving access to clean water or increasing access to clean water for the communities. We have maybe some collection points that water is harvested, maybe through tanks. The tanks are constructed by the projects. We also have health projects that increase the access of the community to health care, primary health care and other types of health care. We also have issues of agriculture, because most of the people who live around the project area do agriculture. Therefore, there is improvement of agriculture systems through the project in terms of conservation agriculture, in terms of being able to farm together with issues of conservation brought on board. Issues like, for example, also water, dams, for example, water pans, where livestock can be able to get water and people can be able to develop their own livelihoods using these areas. Now, these projects, once the community partners with the project in these areas, they become incentives to the community, because they are basic rights, they are basic needs that are met through the project. And the community then get incentives towards now taking care of the ecosystem, taking care of the environment. And you see that this also incentivizes the community to be able to reduce the drivers of deforestation, that now the is taken care of. And therefore, no degradation in terms of farming, in terms of any other. The other important point is reduction of human-wildlife conflict. This one, because the community lives in the project area, and during conservation, there is likelihood of the animals coming over. And one of those incentives of taking care of the animals themselves is the fact that the community is protected in one way or the other by the project, be able to take their crops and so on. The impact is huge as far as the community is concerned in partnership with this project.
Thank you, Seraphine. Charity, your project, exciting structure that involves the Indigenous communities in the project's governance. So just explain how this works and who's involved, please. Charity.
We believe that equitable and participatory governance structure is key to the success of any REDD Plus project. And for the Chyulu Hills REDD Plus project, we have a unique model whereby this is a project with 9 different partners involving the local group branches and the government entity and NGOs. We have Indigenous group branches communities, that is Kuku A. We have Kuku group branch, we have Romba group branch, and Impirikani group branch. And we also have 2 government entities, Kenya Wildlife Service and Kenya Forest Service. We also have 3 NGOs, that is Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust. We have the David Shedrick and Big Life Foundation.
So investment in the project enables the preservation of the Chyulu Hills cloud forest. How does this help in turn to secure Indigenous people's rights?
The project helps or support the Indigenous community rights in the sense that, one, the project is bringing us together as a community. The Maasai community is a pastoral community, and we are very much attached to nature. And through the project, we are able to do more conservation. As a result, getting access to pasture for livestock. The other thing, through the project, we are able to support or promote the local Maasai communities, especially the women. Before the project, women were not allowed to own property or have income, but through the project, we are able to empower the local Maasai women economically through conservation-oriented projects like beekeeping. Through the project also, we are able to support the girl child through a sustainable menstrual solution kit to ensure that the girls don't miss schools or classes because of their menses. Also through the project, we are able to support the community members in land subdivision and getting their land title deeds.
Can you give us some more information perhaps on the economic benefits for communities generated by the project?
The project has generated sustainable economic benefits to the locals. One being through direct employment. The project has employed community members as rangers to do more patrols and protecting of the Chyulus, also protecting the Chyulus from the fires, which is a threat to the project. Through the project, also we have employed teachers to support or improve the poor pupil teacher ratio in the schools, in the group branches. Through the project, also we have been able to employ health staffs and improving the health facilities in the group branches. Also through the project, we have been able to empower the local communities economically through conservation-oriented projects like beekeeping. Also through the project, we have been able to make sure that the kids are staying in school, because for the last 2 years, we have been experiencing very severe droughts in the area. And through the project, we have been able to provide at least lunch for the school-going kids. We have been able to support the group branches economically through school bursaries, making sure that the kids are able to stay in school or go to school through school bursaries.
Let me turn now to the Acapa Mira Frontera project in Colombia, represented today by Dalila. Perhaps you could explain the relationship the communities living in the project area have with the forests in Acapa.
Bueno, el proyecto...
The REDD project for us in Colombia is a great opportunity and possibility to recognize what has been going on in the territory ancestrally. The community councils are ethnic authorities that are created through a law, so they have a legal backing. It is a law from 1993, and it gives the legal authority to these community councils so that their land is their own. This between 2000 and 2003, the Community Council Acapa received a collective title. In that process, it recognizes that the communities have been looking after the forest and they have a very close relationship between the community and the forest because we live around the forest, we live in the forest. And for many generations, the forest has been looked after responsibly. Those who have developed the productive activities or wood extraction activities has been able to carry it out in an illegal way, but since these community councils have this legal backing and the viability in the country, there was a much more friendly process that began. Now we have a very friendly link. It is sustainability based. It is responsible with regards to the forest that is in our territory because we live in it.
How does the project engage with and partner with the local communities to enhance and protect their rights?
First, the project is conceived by us as communities. A project has been dreamt by us as a community. As a community, we build instruments for planning of the territory. As a community, we said we want a REDD Plus project so that we can have the recognition of what we have been doing so far in a very specific way. From that, we began to have a much more direct relationship with the institutions that are doing important things around our territory as well. So what we drafted in a document is what we were able to take to reality. In all of the structures that we have in our territory, we have associations, cooperatives, but our project is community-based. We have administrative bodies that are federal, these boards, and they have a very big community assembly. And that community assembly is where decisions are made in favor of the territory, where decisions are made that they have been agreed and approved are the ones that we later on implement once we are part of the REDD Plus project. That is the relationship we have with communities. It is very close because the project belongs to the communities between women, men, and children in the project. We are interrelated, and there is like a symbiosis that is the communities dream and implement what they have dreamt.
Very quickly then, can you just reflect on how things have changed since the start of the REDD Plus project?
Yes, things have changed because there is more responsibility. Although it is true that there are resources that we receive because we have looked after the forest, we have been friendly in the way we use natural resources. And those resources is where we implement the different activities in order to strengthen our territory, the community governance, the forestry governance in order to strengthen the conservation of species of flora and fauna in the territory and also to drive the various productive components. In our case, to strengthen cocoa production that generate economic development from inclusive business perspectives where families are autonomous, independent, and own their projects. And as a territory, this has given back recognition internationally because we must highlight that we have managed to get to the first position in, of course, high quality cocoa. We won this award in 2015, 2016. And when it comes to coconut, we in Colombia are the strongest producer of coconuts. very high quality one. So all these actions that are carried out, we guarantee families can be part of a productive dynamic that have sustainable income and that can also be friendly towards the environment, and that the value chain is respected for each of these products. We are transparent when it comes to making the investment with the resources, and that is the recognition that REDD Plus gives the communities. These resources are implemented within each of the activities that the communities have already designed in their project plan through our theory of change matrix, and through each of the instruments of planning, the communities have said what their activities were when it comes to governance, conservation of biodiversity, productive alternatives, but we also have social integration, which is crucial to allow us to cover many of the things that are lacking that government should sacrifice. We are covering that, helping education, drinking water, and other activities. So REDD for us is part of our life. REDD has changed the dynamic when it comes to economic issues because we are rich due to our territory, biodiversity, and everything that surrounds us. But we did not have the financial resources to develop like we're developing now. So the reflection is that REDD has strengthened us, and we have done things according to the regulations and what the communities have demanded of us.
Thank you, Dalila, and thank you to all of our panelists. Very powerful descriptions of how the REDD Plus projects, in collaboration with local communities, Indigenous peoples, have done so much to enhance livelihoods and human rights for these peoples. I want to turn to some questions. A lot of questions really that are probably for Josh. A questioner, Tony Simmons from C4 Aircraft, mentions and highlights the fact that it's very worthy and rewarding and crucial to preserve these projects, but so much is linked to the carbon price. IMF suggests that carbon price should be greater than $75 per tonne. UC Berkeley, a study suggests that the cost of carbon should be $180 per tonne. Global average price, $6 per tonne. Should there be a minimum floor price, Josh?
How can you put a value on life? How can you put a value on the human rights of people? These are really impossible questions to ask. Can you put a floor price on life?
So, well, I guess if you've got a market-based solution, then we need to have a pricing. Pricing is part of that, isn't it?
I'm being provocative because, of course, we in Everland, we're a service provider to the people that you're hearing today, and so our job is to try to push as far as possible. And so we believe very much that carbon pricing in the ideal should be based on the social cost of carbon, as Tony is suggesting, or at least at a minimum on the basis of what the opportunity cost is, because everyone here has a choice in what to do with their forest, and they can make money that way. And so you've got to make conservation an economically viable choice, absolutely. And in the end, you have to convince a buyer who's doing this on a purely voluntary basis. And I do want to credit and thank companies who are writing checks to support this kind of work on a purely voluntary basis. I want to emphasize, they don't need to do this. They don't need to do it at all. So why are they doing this? What is going to motivate them to do this? What is going to motivate price? What motivates price is impact, is understanding the meaningfulness of this work, how important it is. Then you value it. So it's why the stories that you're hearing here, the real impacts that you're hearing here from the voices of people who are doing this work and experiencing the benefits of it is so important. This is the value case for REDD Plus right here.
Good point. Well said, Josh. Thank you. Another quick question about finances, how these projects get started. There were several questions asking about how a project might get started. So could you just very quickly outline the sort of process for kicking these projects off?
The process, of course, must begin with each and every one speaking with the people who are here. I mean, I remember hearing José when I was in Alto, Mayo, tell the story of going around to the family. So now this is a big project, but in the beginning, there wasn't one family who had signed a conservation agreement. This man here walked around in that forest with a laptop in his backpack. He told me the story, and he sat down with the people. And he is I know from the area of Peru where the same people who went in to live in the Alto Mayo forest were from. And he went in, he made relations with these people, and he talked with them. And so the first thing you have to do if you want to begin a project like this is to spend time with the communities and step by step walk through a process that is called free, prior, and informed consent. But what that really means is, in good faith, spending the time needed to make relations and to develop a true partnership with the community. That's the first and foundational thing you need to do to begin a project like this.
That actually leads me to a question that I wanted to put to Jose. You mentioned about market links. Could you perhaps, Jose, just give us a little bit more detail about the market links between the communities and external markets, and how the project assists in that connection?
Bueno, primero, nosotros.
Sure. First, we've helped improve the quality of the product. In the case of coffee, both in the physical and in the organoleptic performance of the coffee. And then to organize them in a co-op, and this cooperative has obtained the organic certification, the fair trade certification, another one that is Allies for the Conservation, that is provided by the government, by the National Service of Protected Natural Areas. And this has allowed them to sell the product outside, even in Europe or the US, in specialized markets. And the differential price is due to the improvement of the quality of the coffee in the cup. That is, it's a coffee with lots of attributes, lots of particularities in the taste, the flavor, and that benefits directly the families that have been gradually improving. And even now, we are selling the coffee through digital platforms directly to the toasters, not so much to the intermediaries. So that has allowed the income to improve. It's better than what they could obtain in the local market. That's for coffee. We're trying to do that with other products as well, like vanilla, that we're trying to improve its quality.
We have a number of different questions asking the importance of women's rights and empowering women and how the projects help. I wonder if perhaps I could put that to a couple of our projects. Seraphine, I know in Kasigau, women's empowerment is really important. Can you perhaps just give us a very quick bit of information or detail around specifically how women are empowered through the help of the REDD Plus project?
I think most of these activities that are done by the project in our area directly impact on women. It is women who suffer a lot whenever they cannot access clean water. They take a lot of time. They have to move long distances to.
No, I think we maybe lost you. Let me put that point also then perhaps to you, Charity, in terms of the specifics of women's empowerment. And you mentioned a few things earlier, but are there any other examples of how women are empowered through the project in Chyulu Hills?
Yes, apart from the beekeeping project, we are also in the process of establishing a beadwork project to support women do beadwork through the REDD Plus project in collaboration with the Kenya Wildlife Service.
The question I want to put to, refers to Dalila's intervention earlier. And I want to put this to you, if you wouldn't mind, Dalila. Question for Jeff Hayward. He commented how you mentioned community a lot in your responses. And do you think that perhaps people that criticize REDD Plus project, carbon crediting, don't understand what's going on the ground and don't understand the level of, as the questioner puts, agency and leadership that your communities are demonstrating?
Yes, I agree with that. I think that when you are on the ground, those of us who have the opportunity of getting to know these projects firsthand with the communities, you feel and you get that real and concrete knowledge that the communities are empowered. Today, we can say that our community projects have an amazing empowerment at all levels. I was speaking of the kids, the youth, women, men. We have women that are stronger now through their production initiatives, through their business ideas also that have been supported accordingly, so that these women also feel an active part, because they are active when they participate in the economic responsibility, when they can also manage economic resources. Apart from all the actions, all the things they do in their homes, the power in the communities, very generally speaking, because it's not just being in a board or managing the territory. That empowerment is at all levels, at the communities that are the essential foundations of the territory and of this project in particular. And when I say the communities, they also organize themselves to sell their different farming products. For instance, as I mentioned, cocoa. Today in our territory, we have groups of women that are transforming cocoa, groups of women that are transforming cocoa. I mean, they are making a great use of their product. And that's important because they're also part of the chain of the REDD+ project. So the power is with the communities and with the people that live in the territory.
Thanks very much. Seraphine, great to have you back. I want to put that point around community agency and leadership. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I am. The ground or the community representation in the project, in terms of giving voice to the community to be able to participate fully in what the projects are in the projects. One, in the choice of the projects that are being undertaken. Two, in the process of implementation. Three, in the decision making in terms of what project do we need ourselves according to our own feelings as a community. There are examples of this on the ground. For example, in my own community, we have had a tank constructed last year to be able to receive water. And about 500 members now are accessing this water in the community. 500 members of the community are now able to access clean water just because of this. The impact of the project is good. And what is important is now enhancing these impacts through even more shifts towards the community now being able to participate even further, and even more funding. We are looking forward to more funding for the project. Maybe many people now being able to buy the carbon so that the communities can actually fully benefit, because still there are gaps that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Seraphine. Kimheak, do you want to comment on that as we close? We come to the end of the webinar. Comment a little bit on some of the lack of understanding about the sort of terms of agency and leadership in the communities.
The protected area, like in Cambodia, in Kasigau REDD+ project, formerly also managed by the Ministries of Environment, the government, but then since the local community live within the protected area, and we respect the indigenous people right, we protect the cultural right, so we trying to engage community in the protection of the forest, like co-management. So we need to support the community to manage the certain area in order to protect the cultural and set the boundary for the community who live in the forest where we implement the REDD+ project, so that they will not clear the forest outside their designated boundary. In terms of the criticisms on the REDD+ project violates the indigenous people right, if it comes to the Kasigau REDD+ project, it's not true, because the Kasigau REDD+ project trying to respect and empower the indigenous people to continue using the resource in the traditional way. So they continue to live in their own way, and live in their own way here. They also support the protections of the forest to success in REDD+ project implementation. How the indigenous people lifestyle, the traditional way helps support the conservation or implement the REDD+ project. because they believe in the sacred forest, they believe in burial forest, so they don't let anyone clear that forest, and they themselves do not clear the forest. So this is their way of supporting to implement the REDD project to achieve the objective of the REDD project.
Thank you very much indeed. Josh, let me just give you a final word to you, Josh, just to kind of sum up what we've heard. What are the key things that you're taking away?
What I've heard is that we're seeing remarkable breakthroughs for the rights of people, Indigenous people, and local communities across a tremendously wide diversity of situations, from where Indigenous people are living in protected areas where they didn't have any recognized land rights, all the way to communities such as at Acapa, Bajo, Mira, that do have firm tenure rights and strong governance, and they're trying to use REDD as a way to support their human right to chart their own autonomous, sustainable development path without cutting down the forest. And, to me, what cuts across all of this is that people living in forest communities have the right to have real options to develop themselves in the way that they want. We are obligated to provide options. So I don't think the critics of REDD have a fair or an accurate picture whatsoever. In fact, I think they're being extraordinarily disrespectful. If you hear the work and the heart and the impact of the work that we've heard about today, it's tremendously disrespectful and it's tremendously harmful. These people are pursuing the real human right, which is to create options. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and sharing the truth of what's happening on the ground in your work.
Josh, thank you very much indeed. Many thanks indeed to our panel. Echoing Josh, it's been a real pleasure and an honor to be with you all today from all around the world. It's been really exciting to be part of this conversation. Much more content on the Innovation Forum website, including some interviews that I did when I was in the REDD+ project in Cambodia. Thanks to Everland for their support of this webinar. But that's it for now. Until next time, goodbye.